Welcome to This Week in Cannabis Live. I am Jay Rosenthal. That is Jeremy Burke. Ben Larson is with us, as is Mark Hauser. Welcome, everybody. We're together.
We are.
It's you fun. Are together.
It's not AI.
Yeah, we're dressed the same. It's great to be down here.
It's not AI. We're in the.
We'll prove it. How many fingers do you have?
You're right. 6.
Wave it in front of your face.
That's always my favorite. Welcome, everybody. It's been a interesting and busy week in the cannabis realm. We're going to talk about it all. But this was Jeremy's favorite thing this week, and that the Knicks are driving cannabis sales in New York. We have a chart from Little Earths, which Rick Bashkoff, friend of the pod, is sort of what I like to call it, talked about on his LinkedIn. And that is sort of the uptick in cannabis sales across boroughs in Manhattan. Jeremy, the biggest province was Brooklyn.
Borough.
We're
in Canada.
The biggest uptick was in Brooklyn. That is how much of that 9.13% of Brooklyn cannabis sales is you?
I'm not going to take credit for all of it, but some of it certainly was me and my friends. I do think that the broader point here is that I think cannabis brands should be aware and active about these big sporting events being sales events, right?
Yes.
The Knicks are in the playoffs. They're probably, fingers crossed, hopefully they're going to close out the series over the next 2 games. And look, that's a huge opportunity for New York cannabis brands to do tie-ins, to do sales, whatever they can do that regulations allowed, I think they should be doing. The city is alive. It's super energetic. It's super fun. And, New York does have a cool craft industry. A lot of New York companies hit the top of the Little Earths Index all the time. So what an awesome opportunity. I think it's great.
I'll say 2 things. One is, yes, go Knicks. I would never say that. But it turns out, and maybe Ben, the Super Bowl Sunday and the NFL playoffs are that is one of the biggest cannabis sales of the year and a very down time, like the first week of February. That's one thing. 2, we have World Cup games here in Toronto starting today at 3 p.m. Eastern. And the Ontario Cannabis Store, which is our provincial wholesaler, and they're also online retailer, chose to make it they took over a bunch of transit, and their message wasn't buy legal cannabis. It was more don't buy illegal. The messaging was be wary of illegal cannabis sellers. It's
I was thinking about, Jay, you slapped me that, and it's just it's sometimes hard for Americans to understand Canada, but what an Ontario thing to do. That is just the most typical Canadian thing. Spot the risk. Don't take too much advantage of it. Keep your head down. It's come on, guys. This is fun.
It's really fun. It's really fun. And even if you wanted to, this is one more thing. And then if you even wanted to launch a product specific for this week in Canada, you needed to start, you needed to have started 12 months ago to get the product listing through the Ontario Cannabis Store, then work its way through that to the retailers. There's no way to even do it here that would be relevant to this event, but New York, certainly there is. Mark, you know a lot about Las Vegas. Are there specific things about happening in markets that you guys operate in?
The Golden Knights.
Yeah. That relative to sporting events or big events in town?
There's certainly there's certainly sort of specials around games and things like that. But nothing that's direct enough. Part of that is just, I think, the limitations on what we can do advertising wise, and, truly sort of partnering with professional teams, that don't want to touch the plan or contract with somebody who's directly touching the plan.
Even if their players fucking love it.
Yeah.
Right, Ben?
I think the best advertising, so to speak, that we can do as an industry is to be loud and proud about these big sales days. It's if the more articles we can get written about this, the more attention we can draw to it. Not only will it bump the sales of those shops, but eventually, the stadiums, the sports owners, like we saw in Chicago with their hemp deal with Senorita, they'll want them in the stadiums at some point. They'll want those sales funnel through there. And it's that seems like a long road for the regulated cannabis space right now. But maybe not too distant future.
Yeah. So I will note in that deal with Rhythm, the United Center, they can't actually sell during sporting events, which is is the sad part. It's only for concerts.
It's close.
It's close. But yeah,
so close.
I agree. Every little one of these things just shows that this is a mainstream normal product.
Yeah,
It
and
should
I
not
was just
be.
gonna say, if for all the hand wringing about cannabis and public health that we've seen lately in the mainstream press and many conservatives, more people using cannabis versus alcohol is a good thing for public health at these sporting events. Like just walking around Brooklyn after the Knicks won, I think there's a lot of people under the influence of alcohol would probably be acting a little bit more safely.
Nobody's going to be overturning cars,
They wouldn't probably be on top of a bus. I think they'd be, hanging out,
yes.
they'd
enjoying.
be hugging the
Man,
bus. Yeah.
I saw pictures of people climbing the scaffolding, and I'm like, don't those people know that those things fall on their own? Like,
This is your public safety warning from Ben.
They don't need help making them fall.
Speaking of falling, that's a good transition. Sorry, Trulieve. Trulieve was listed on the New York Stock Exchange this week. Jeremy's going to give us the real time what's going on. Not that it was met with a collective shrug. I think they are suffering from also being listed this week is SpaceX, grabbing a lot of certainly retail investor attention, literally as we speak. I don't know if those things are really correlated, but it wasn't met with a collective shrug. I think it's a big move for the industry, but it's not as if this thing rocketed up like they did in Canada when they first went public or were on the bigger exchanges. What's the latest?
So I'm pulling up my phone here because I usually have my computer in front of me. So sorry, everyone. But they are down. It's trading at $11.15 per share. It opened at 12. It's down 3.5% today, and about, doing quick calculation, about 4.5% since open. So look, it's down. I think two things are happening. One is, yes, of course, the same pool of retail investors, as Jay said, is interested in Elon Musk, is interested in cannabis. SpaceX starts trading today around 1:30 or 2. That's obviously sucking up all the oxygen. Two, there is, just with respect to my new friends at Trulieve, there is a bit of a bizarre departure of President Jason Pernell. And this just sort of hit the news wires today. It's sort of been circulating social media. Is this something that retail would sell over? I don't know. It looked like there was a dip and it bounced back up, but the timing is odd, right? You have this New York Stock Exchange listing. Jason was a co-founder of the company. He's been there, 8 years or so. So the timing's odd. There, I don't know, something going on. I think the third thing too, from a retail investor perspective, is that, if they're reading the coverage that we're putting out, they know that it's just medical cannabis. And while it's a huge coup for Kim Rivers to get the listing itself, this is not, the recreational market that many retail investors want to see happen. So I think there is some wising up to that as well. And trading volume is pretty thin, right? I think we didn't see much move over the past few days. And so while it will be a bellwether, I think it's, we're not seeing it rocket up 200% in the first week.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it did pop on the news ahead of the relisting. There was a nice run.
It was already priced in.
It seesawed a little bit. Yeah.
So, and it did bring some of the other stocks up with it, and some of them have actually done better in maintaining that than others, showing just kind of the irrationality of cannabis stocks to a certain extent. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, look, it is a huge achievement. I think it's, but I think that it also shows, unfortunately, just how there just still isn't enough coverage from, institutional investors will start to get more comfortable once we see, analyst coverage kick in. If we, look, if they can get, if the big real coup will be is if Trulieve can pull off some sort of underwritten offering.
Right.
And I imagine that, I didn't check to see if they have a at the market offering right now. They probably do, and they're probably selling into it. But if they could pull off a nice fat underwritten offering, that would really sort of prove out the value, the real long-term value of this uplisting, because that's what you do it for. You're not just doing it to make liquidity for secondary trades better. That doesn't really help that sort of indirectly helps the company, but it's the ability to attract that institutional capital is why you do this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's hope they can pull it off. Go ahead. Sorry, Ben.
No, I was just going to say, I think more than anything, this is just positive signaling for the industry. It's like having something on the NYSE is huge for the category. Anyone that's tracking the industry knows that its future is about as uncertain as ever. Although, well, at least, no, I mean, I was at the Cannabis Regulators Association external stakeholder event this week in Oklahoma City, and it was kind of funny to have an entire room of regulators, both federal, a lot of state, some other countries, and nobody knows what's really going on, with the exception of maybe one person who represents Trulieve. But like the regulators' general message throughout the entire week was like, we're not making recommendations about what to do with Schedule 3. But we're here to partner with you. And so we're all in the same boat, with the exception of maybe Kim Rivers. And so, I think retail investors, especially when it comes to cannabis, have gotten savvy to that we just don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, and there's no, I mean, Ben, maybe you can share more about this, but there's just, a lot of the regulators, when they're quoted in the press about rescheduling, about the upcoming DEA hearings, they're getting no guidance from the federal government, right? Which may be par for the course for the Trump administration. The man in the Oval Office puts a finger on the scale, but then, the chains of communication kind of break down after that. And so it's interesting to see, like, they don't really know more than you or I do, right? Which is a problem,
That was absolutely validated. It's like, and I sat with the new DCC director of in California, and California has reached out a number of times to the DEA, and they have not received a response. And not a surprise, there are some other states that have received some responses, so there's a little bit of favoritism maybe happening. But even in those responses, there's more questions than answers.
And at the end of the day, like, even if it's, a red state with a, MAGA regulator, let's say, like, there's still attorneys and policies that they need to deal with that aren't very ideological, right? And so these things do need to be ironed out, and people are smart to see that, and to give businesses and municipalities the right guidance. I think that's still lacking, and hopefully the June 29th hearing is the start of clearing that up.
Ben, was there any discussion about any of the litigation that's going on? Or anticipated? Yeah.
I think in general, the consensus was that the rescheduling was done largely by the book, and that it will stick. And so, I think the greater question still lies about, like, how does this affect adult use? The June 29th hearing is, going to be watched by everyone. I don't know if I don't know if there's any clarity or confidence about what happens there, but I think lawsuits in cannabis just tend to create a lot of problems in general with our relationship with regulators and the various governing bodies. They're inevitable, but it just puts a really bad taste in the mouth of anyone that's actually trying to manage or operate around it.
Yeah, I will say, if you wanted to hold a hearing and have as few people pay attention as possible, you would put it on June 29th. I don't know if that was intentional. They wanted to give it 30 days to announce all those things, but like June 29th to like the third week in July, maybe the least, the time of the year with the least people paying attention to anything. It fall, 4th of July, 250th, in between school ending, summer starting, lots of vacations. Like, if you wanted people not to pay attention, including Congress, you would put it in the middle of the summer or beginning of the summer.
Yeah. But I will say, I think that hearing, if that's really not going to be the last word.
Right.
And, and I think the question will be if that hearing comes out, even the hearing itself, all it does then is it's not a final decision. It's just then the judges then makes a written fact finding, I guess, opinion. It's finding a fact that then gets sent to the DEA for the DEA to make a final decision. Or actually, yeah. And so really is, what does the DEA decide? And then it will be interesting to see how, for example, the exchanges react to that decision. What does it look like? doesn't have the same sort of DEA registration process that medical has. And if it doesn't, do the exchanges get comfortable, without that registration? If it does, that means that adult use is fully legal, which is really weird. But even then, will the exchanges and other folks be willing to list companies and make moves pending that litigation?
And not to mention, like, to that point, all the plumbing associated with being a stock on the New York Stock Exchange, right? The clearinghouses, the custodians, broker dealers, like all these institutions or all these firms and institutions are going to have to make their own decisions about it, and pending litigation. Look, that's a risk,
Yeah. I mean, all of this is there's a crapshoot in all of this. It may be a calculated crapshoot, but that's probably not fair. It's a very calculated risk, but there's definitely risk involved with all of this.
Mark, could you share a little bit more about there was that suit with I'm going to blank on the details because you're the lawyer, but they're sort of supporting past a normal suit that said rescheduling must be done some way, and then
the normal case.
I don't fully understand it.
The basic idea behind it. This was filed a few days ago. It's all part of the same litigation that Sam and others have filed, all in the DC circuit. And what it's doing is it's challenging the rescheduling of medical. And basically, at heart, it's saying that the DEA did not properly follow the process for rescheduling medical. And part of it, what the basic claim is, there's a case a long time ago in the same DC circuit that involved Normal, the advocacy group about trying to reschedule cannabis, that says that there's certain processes that have to be followed, including a recommendation from HHS, which has been obtained, but also I'm going to get it wrong here because I skimmed the case. I haven't spent enough time with it, but basically a public hearing process and the like. Yeah. And the argument is that didn't take place in this case. And so there's other arguments in there as well that challenge all of this. And so they're asking for the courts to basically stay, or basically the equivalent of an injunction of the rescheduling pending sort of full-blown sort of briefing and argument. That's the basic thing. I think we'll probably see some guidance from the DC circuit on this case by the time the hearings are over on adult use. So I think that will, how this comes out and how the DC circuit sort of guides us will color some of the thinking about, the outcome of the adult use hearings. So a lot to chew on. And, I think again, everything is a precaution of nothing is certain. And, all this sort of excitement to the industry, it's good, and we should be excited about everything that's happened, but don't get too excited.
Yeah.
The interesting insight I did get this week about the DEA registrations and all that kind of stuff is that people are actually starting to receive responses from their applications, and it amounts to, it's like, all right, you claimed that you have these SOPs or that you have these standings, and now they're asking for submitting evidence. And I think that's a positive signal that there's an actual process that's actually happening right now.
So it's not just good for lawyers and accountants; it's also good for regulatory affairs people. You're saying
exactly.
Okay. The group of people that are going to be really excited about this is widening.
Yeah.
There's a whole new batch of consultants like frothing.
I actually saw someone holding. I'm not even going to say he was holding a webinar online about exactly this. It was like, okay, not just lawyers and accountants. Now we're broadening the circle of people that are going to see major benefit from the next couple of months. I want to, speaking of lawyers, Jeremy, I'm going to hand it over to you for a bit. A lot has been happening in New York, including new labor rules, which are interesting. Jeremy, you wrote about it, or we wrote about it in the newsletter, and some other things happening in New York. I wanted to sort of New York as a test case for the rest of the country. What
Yeah.
is the latest?
We did write about it, and I after we posted the newsletter, a bunch of lawyers reached out and told me I got it all wrong. So
Perfect.
you know, that's par for the course. But I'll be careful as I talk about this. So the state legislature did pass a bill on June 1st, which would effectively kill the labor peace agreements, which each new license holder has to sign to get involved with a union. Right. That comes out of there's a pending summary judgment. It is not going to trial. A case Hybrid NYSE LLC versus the Cannabis Control Board. Hybrid NYSE is the parent company of Gotham, a cultivated partner and big cannabis retailer and dispensary chain in New York. Basically, this was the state legislature, as I understand it, front running what they believe to be will be an adverse judgment for the state in this case, meaning that if that goes forward, labor peace agreements could be at risk all over the country with every cannabis program. But the bill would create a cannabis industry wage board, and it would have an industry rep and then one from AFL-CIO. So the unions would still get their say and get their cut. But certainly interesting things, because the unionization issue has been a very prominent issue. But the labor peace agreements in each state's regulations are a core component of that. So we will see what happens with the judgment. It hasn't come yet, but obviously, the state legislature does believe that the ruling is going to go a certain way, and they did pass the bill. So it goes to Hochul's desk, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. This is go ahead, Mark. You're also a lawyer. I want to sort of.
Yeah, I might have messed that all up, Mark.
It sounded so smart.
Yeah, you can correct me.
It sounded right to me.
Yeah,
it sounded right to me. And it's not surprising, just given the the current sort of environments politically. With challenging things like labor peace agreements, or labor generally. And those kind of statutory requirements, as well as other social equity type of programs. And so it's interesting to see the legislature try to sort of say, all right, front running it and anticipating trying to find other ways to to get a level of balance of having labor have some sort of skin in the game, even if it's not a full-blown what they get out of labor peace agreement, and what the operators get out of it too. So
yeah, and I think, Mark, I mean, so some of that is certainly there's certainly politics around it. I mean, just speaking specifically for young people, in their 20s and 30s, from the pandemic onwards, like these labor issues, especially in New York, were a big deal for a lot of people. But, now 5 or 6 years later, I think some are seeing okay, what did the union give me when they, take a percent of my paycheck every month? So the reality is also starting to hit. And I think, we're going to see that fight pan out. It's, cannabis is certainly a microcosm of those broader, political divides and issues in the country.
That, and the companies are not nearly as successful, I think, the regulators or legislators thought they would be. So 0% of zero is zero.
Right.
And a great contract for employees that don't exist is also zero.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of that as well.
Yeah, as a business owner, I remember when we were filing for our first license, and I was looking at what's this labor peace agreement?
Yeah.
And then that side of our business never actually got big enough to really trigger anything. But the only news where kept coming back to me was these shadow organizations would get created just so that people could check the box. And I think that's happened actually in a number of states now, where you have a union that doesn't actually exist.
Right. This is our favorite. I hope you've all been preparing for this moment. This is my favorite part of the show. Are you ready? Winners and losers. Ben, I'm going to you first. Winner, loser.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. I hope you've been preparing. This is part of the thing.
So my winner of the week is Jillian Schauer, the director of CANRA, and I really do appreciate the space that she creates to bring the regulators and operators through the associations together. I think it creates a space to have the conversations, to disagree in a respectful, diplomatic way. and to hopefully open the lens of the regulators' minds. And I will point out, and maybe this is a little hint of losers, that there are a number of regulators where they very much fulfill the stereotype of government employees. And it's maybe not their fault, but they are given a rule set. They are operating in said rule set. That rule set becomes their reality, and they do not realize that they are then becoming advocates of purgatory that is strangling an industry. And so I applaud the other regulators that were in the room that very much have an open mind, that are looking to create workable systems to support a future thriving industry, because I don't think any industry can claim to be thriving today.
And now next week, Ben is going to name names.
I was very close because I felt on the spot, but we'll hold that offline.
Jeremy, you're up. Winners, losers.
I'm gonna go with the same theme. New York dispensaries for the Knicks, the first cannabis brand to create some sort of OG and an OB tie-in, is gonna be the biggest winner. So don't steal my idea, please.
You shouldn't do it publicly while we're streaming. That's the whole thing.
If someone wants to give me some capital to invest,
perfect.
I will return it 10x. I promise you.
Really some free product.
That's pretty good. Mark,
come back to me because I just forgot my winner.
I have a
totally
loser and a winner. My loser is FIFA, which my son was joking the other day that FIFA is ruining everything. They've ruined his feed and YouTube Shorts is what I think he's most upset about. But they are, it is like the most egregious sort of money grab of all money grabs, and like just an organization that is super corrupt and everybody needs to rely on because it is the World Cup. Like, it's a love-hate relationship, but right now I'm hating them because the tickets today, I think, for the game that's starting in a couple hours is like, they were 3,000, then they went on to 1,000 per ticket, and now they are at like 1,500, 2,000 right before the game. So,
but they gave Donald Trump his FIFA Peace Prize.
Exactly.
So.
Well, that's a double whammy. So that's the loser, even though we have to watch the games and it's amazing tournament. That's the loser. The winner is actually Gail Rand. I didn't even talk about Gail Rand was on our show again this week. She released not only her gross margin sort of index for the quarter, but also for 5 years. And so she's been tracking this 5 years. At the beginning of the 5 years, I think it was over 50% gross margin. Now it's around 40 something. So it's gone down a full 10% of the company she tracks. We talked a bit about that, including Trulieve and what it means, because they broke it out for the first time where you can read into their filings. So a big hit overall that it's gone down. And we talked about, is this the bottom? Will things change? All those things. So shout out to Gail Rand for the work she does. She's my winner. FIFA is the loser. I didn't think I could work in Gail Rand and FIFA in the same but here's where we are. This is cannabis, right?
Gail, FIFA.
Gail,
Yeah.
Gail, you win. FIFA, you lose. Mark.
I would like to. A winner is and somebody that's always a winner is Bouffe du Jour, which if you're not reading Bouffe du Jour, you should be reading Bouffe du Jour. They posted something I caught. I don't know if it was actually today, but on cannabis CEOs, the stereotype of cannabis CEOs and what they're wearing and what they say at conferences, and it was just it was beautifully spot on. And I think they do a great job of balancing that. You know, it's slightly mean overall, but it's for a love of the industry, not for out of hate of the industry. And so you know, they just nail it. So it's a shout out to Bouffe du Jour for the work that they put in.
I love it. The only objection I have with that is that they said they were wearing vests and Jordan 1 mids.
Yeah.
My Jordans are low tops. So like all I'm saying is that I was wearing a vest when I read that, but I was also wearing Jordan 1 lows, which is a totally different thing.
That's why you're not a CEO, man.
There you go.
There you go.
Fair. I need to get the high tops.
Yeah.
Okay. Any winners? That's your winner. Any losers?
No, not this week. Everybody's
that's very nice of you.
Aww.
Oh,
You're
that's
all
so nice.
in my
You
eyes.
didn't want to kiss up like Ben did to the regulators, or no? But he not only did he kiss up, he also sort of shut them down. So in fairness, he balanced both. He named names on the good side, not on the bad side. We're gonna get it out of him at some point. But
Jillian's not a regulator, just for
I know, but she's the organizer of the regulators. It's the same. It's the same start of the chart. Ben, Mark, Jeremy, thanks so much. This has been This Week in
Thank you.
Cannabis Live. We'll be back next week, which is June 19th. Today's June 12th, June 19th, and then the end of school, and then the hearing. Maybe we should all meet in DC to like go over this when we're do it live from on the road in DC. Anybody up for that?
Good.
You're gonna pay me to? You're gonna pay for my flight and
No.
housing out there?
Maybe move to Jorwell for the inside.
I'm no fly for the next 2 months.
Good, fair enough. And believe me, of the timing is bad. June 29th. Nobody wants to sort of pay attention, and definitely don't want to be in DC at the end of June, beginning of July. It is a swampy mess of a swampy mess. So nobody's going there. So all that said, Ben, Mark, Jeremy, thanks so much. We'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.